Hello and welcome back to the Daily English Talk, the podcast that helps you navigate the sometimes choppy waters of English conversation. I'm your host, Liam, and today we're diving into a topic that I think many of us have experienced and perhaps dreaded: awkward silences. And to help us explore this, I'm thrilled to welcome back to the show Chloe. Chloe, thanks for joining us again.
It's great to be here, Liam. Awkward silences, yes. I think everyone can relate to that feeling. It's like the conversation just stops.
Exactly. It's that moment when you've both run out of things to say, or maybe one person has finished their thought and the other is still processing, and suddenly the air gets thick.
It really does. And for English learners, it can be even more daunting, can't it? Because you're already concentrating so hard on what to say, and then a silence hits, and you might panic, thinking you've made a mistake or that you don't have the vocabulary to fill it.
That's a very important point, Chloe. It's not just about the social awkwardness, it's about the added pressure for language learners. So, let's start by defining what we mean by an awkward silence. What is it, in your opinion?
I think it's a pause in conversation that feels uncomfortably long, where neither person feels compelled to speak, and there's a sense of uncertainty or a lack of connection. It's different from a comfortable silence, where you might be sharing a moment of understanding or reflection.
Right? A comfortable silence implies a shared experience or a mutual understanding. An awkward silence feels more like a void. So, what causes these silences? Are they always a bad thing?
Well, they can stem from a few things. Sometimes, it's simply running out of topics. You've discussed the weather, your hobbies, your work, and you're just done. Other times, it can be a misunderstanding, or one person is waiting for the other to elaborate. And no, they aren't always a bad thing. As we said, a brief pause is natural. It's when it stretches on and creates discomfort that it becomes an issue. And for English learners, it can also happen when they are translating in their head or searching for the right word. That mental processing time can feel like an eternity to the other person, even if it's only a few seconds.
Absolutely. So, the big question: what can we do when we find ourselves in one of these silences? What are some strategies for bridging the gap?
I think the first and most important strategy is to not panic. Take a breath. Remind yourself that it's okay. Most people are more understanding than you think.
That's good advice. So, assuming we've taken a breath and haven't completely frozen, what's the first thing we can try saying?
One of the simplest ways is to ask a question. But not just any question. You want to ask an open-ended question that encourages more than a yes or no answer.
Can you give us some examples?
Sure, if you've just finished talking about a particular topic, you could say something like, "What are your thoughts on that?" Or, "What do you think about?" This invites the other person to share their perspective.
That's a good one. It shows you're interested in their opinion. What else?
You can also use the silence as an opportunity to ask for clarification or elaboration on something that was just said. For example, if the other person mentions something interesting but brief, you could say, "That's really interesting. Could you tell me a bit more about that?"
This is great, Chloe. It shows active listening. It's not just about filling the silence, but about deepening the conversation.
Exactly. And it's a perfect way for English learners to practice asking follow-up questions, which is a crucial skill. Another option is to bring up a related topic. You can connect something that was just discussed to a new but relevant subject.
How would that work in practice?
Let's say you were talking about a recent movie. You could then pivot by saying, "Speaking of movies, have you seen any good TV shows lately?" Or, "That reminds me, I was meaning to ask you about your favorite genre of film."
This is a very natural way to transition. It doesn't feel forced at all.
It shouldn't feel forced. The key is to find a genuine connection. If there isn't an obvious connection, you can also go back to something earlier in the conversation.
You mean like referencing something from the beginning of the chat?
Yes, for example, earlier you mentioned you enjoy hiking. Have you been on any interesting trails recently? This shows you were paying attention and are interested in their life.
That's a fantastic technique. It shows you're engaged and remember what they've said. What if you're completely stumped and can't think of anything related?
In that case, you can always resort to a more general observation about your surroundings or the current situation. For instance, "This is a lovely cafe, isn't it?" Or, "It's quite busy here today."
These are good for very casual encounters, perhaps, but for a more in-depth conversation, they might feel a bit superficial.
True, but sometimes a superficial comment can break the ice and then allow for a more meaningful conversation to emerge. It's about getting the ball rolling again. And for English learners, these general observations are often easier to formulate because they rely on common vocabulary and sentence structures.
Precisely. Now, what about using humor? Is that a good way to break an awkward silence?
Humor can be brilliant, but it's a bit of a double edged sword. A well timed, light-hearted comment can be very effective. Something self deprecating, perhaps, like, "Well, that was a moment of profound silence, wasn't it? My brain just went on vacation."
That's a good example. It acknowledges the silence in a humorous way without making it seem like a personal failing.
Exactly. But you have to be careful with humor. If it falls flat, it can make the silence even more awkward. So, know your audience and your comfort level.
That's very wise advice. So, to recap, don't panic. Ask open-ended questions, ask for clarification, bring up related topics, revisit earlier topics, make general observations, and use humor cautiously. That's a great toolkit.
It is. And I think it's also important to remember that sometimes the other person might be the one feeling the awkwardness, and they might be waiting for you to speak. So, by taking the initiative, you're not only helping yourself, but potentially helping them too.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much, Chloe, for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me, Liam. It was a pleasure.
And thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to the Daily English Talk. Join us next time for another conversation to help you speak English fluently and confidently. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye, everyone.